It has a lid and a storage compartment. Look at that. Isn't that freaking amazing? That's something that a lot of other power stations, I think I've only seen 2 others on the market that have a storage compartment. If you're gonna have space sticking up, like these are my other power stations, if you're gonna have space sticking up for a handle, why not make that space actually useful for something like a storage compartment? Wonderful. Why don't more do this? All right, guys, this is an EENOUR P2001. I don't know where the 1 comes from, but it's a 2,000 watt hour, 2,000 watt solar generator power station. Go over some high points. This is one of the cheapest 2,000 watt class, if you can call it that, solar generators. And some other high points here. Charging is a single C13 power cable. C13 is just a fancy name for a standard computer power cord that has a connector that looks like this. Other important notes in this bag of holding here, we have a Anderson power pole connector. This is for charging, and MC4 connectors. So this is set up as standard to connect to any large format solar panel you're going to find to charge this up. And the Anderson power pole connector is also very standard. This power station uses them. Most power stations use them now. Again, I like that it's standard and not proprietary. Some of the other power stations that are coming out now have proprietary connectors, and I don't like that. So that's really good. It's standard. And then if you're a masochist, here's Anderson power pole to cigarette lighter jack. You could charge this up. It would probably take 10 amps times 12 volts is 120 watt hours. This is 2,000 watt hours. So 2,000 divided by 120, blah, blah, blah. It's gonna take a while. But if you have this like out in your Jeep and you're doing some off-roading and this is your power station for your fridge, this would work great for it because you could just trickle charge this as it needs or as your vehicle is on happen chance, and then you can pull power off as you need, like to run a compressor or your fridge, as I mentioned. You'd probably be able to run a 120 volt welder on the outputs from this. We don't need these on anymore. And that was a loud one. The fan tick is pretty loud. And the EcoFlow river here is just doing pass-through AC, so it's not even doing anything really. An additional thing I would like to mention is these green tie wraps are my own, so that's one thing that they could include that they haven't, especially because the power cord, and this is going to segue into multiple different statements, I'm sure. The power cord is one chunky power cord. This is a 14 gauge C13 power cord. Most every other C13, no, not most, every other C13 style power cord that I have, and trust me, I have a bin full of these, is an 18 gauge. So while this is a standard connector and you can charge it with any of the 18 gauge like I was just doing, it gets a little warm. So you need the 14 gauge to power this adequately. Like here I had it plugged in. This is just a short, again, a segue, short C13 cable that I have, and I kind of like this one because it fits in the top easily. But I was using this to charge up this device and it was getting a little bit warm. So you do need the bigger one. And so some other comments about charging this. This has 1,100 watts of input power and a 2,000 watt hour battery capacity. So it actually charges up to full in about 2 hours. And that's if it's completely dead. Another comment, you can get different formats of these. You can get them really long, like the light that I have here. It came with a 20-foot C13 power cord. I would not recommend using that unless it's the 14 gauge wire. You can get these with a right angle so it doesn't stick out as much. And that's maybe one minor thing, that these doors, they kind of block the view of stuff And it's a love-hate relationship because they block the view of stuff, but they also keep dirt and grime from naturally falling into the connectors. So I understand why they're there. It's just, it is what it is. Power input, like I said, was these Anderson power pole connectors, and you can do 500 watts. I've not seen 500 watts. I have 600 watts of solar panels hooked up, but it's October, so I don't have a whole lot of sun to power those panels, and they're not set up properly to begin with anyways. It does have, you see this little symbol here, nothing above 50 volts. And then here's overload protection. I've plugged too many things into this previously, and it can't draw too much power in. I've never had to reset this, so I imagine this is just a like an emergency backup if something in the programming of this fails and it doesn't shut off automatically like it should. Man, I need a lazy Susan. Got some dirt on there. I've been using this, so it's got some dirt and some stains and some scratches. Here's all the data on the back. And then here's your AC output. So you got 6. These are 20 amp rated plugs. That's what that little additional horizontal bit here is. And there's 6 of them. Again, there's a little door, so it makes it a little bit hard to view and plug things in here, but it keeps junk from getting in there. So that's good. And then here's your little power button for that. Turn it on and off. That was on. Now it's off. On the front, it's really basic. The only thing that's like maybe different or non-standard from all power stations that I've seen is it has an XT60 power output for 12 volts. There are a lot of things that do take XT60 power. The one thing I can think of that's common is like RC cars. So this would be great for running an RC car charger. You could also wire an XT60 plug up to, say, your RV to run 12 volt circuits on the RV. And this would be a much more reliable plug to plug things into as opposed to the DC car jack here. Because these, I don't really trust them and I feel like they fall out too easy. And it's not a fault of EENOUR, it's just the format is lacking. And then you have two 12 volt 3 amp outputs. Now this is 10 amps plus 3 amps. So these two are paired together and these two are paired together. And these are regulated circuits, so you're always going to get the correct voltage and it's not going to run low. A lot of other power stations, the battery voltages that they run on are kind of low to begin with and they're just direct wired. But this has a 48 volt nominal pack, so it converts that down to 12 volts to run these. Other things kind of note, you got some pretty good USB outputs here. So you have 12 watts on these two, 18 on these two, 100 watt power delivery on these. And I love that for charging up my phone because I know it's always going to get full power. Some phones even will take in more than 18 watts now, and you need these 100 watt chargers for some phones. But these are also useful for laptops. Now these are only one directional power delivery, so you can't charge this device through these. One of my other power stations, the Fantic, you can charge it through USB-C. And I kind of like that function because it requires just a little charging brick. Because it doesn't have an internal way of converting 120 volts AC into whatever charging voltage it needs. And as with most power stations nowadays, it has this very nice display that shows you the amount of time remaining to either fill it up or discharge it, your percentage, input watts, and output watts. And then along the bottom it has some indicators for output of different devices here. So you have USB, that. Does this light show up there? Yeah, light shows up there too. Then you have light here. It's a 2 watt, so it doesn't look very bright right now, but I have a 100 watt light shining on us right now. So of course it's not going to look very bright. And then you have, what is that? That's SOS. And then just a strobe. And if you're on light and you want to go off, just hold it down, so you don't have to cycle through the rest of them. All right, that's all there is for the unit. So the tie wraps keep that and those kind of small so they fit in here easily. All right, let's go out in the field and, well, not literally the field, but almost a field, and see how this does. Here I have a small boulder that I could maybe try digging out or try getting somebody else to dig it out. But let's try just jackhammering off the top of it, because I shaved this part of it off with my lawn tractor last time I was mowing, or the first time I was mowing this property, because this is a new property and I did not see this because it was covered in grass. All right, I don't have any projects right now that like requires woodworking and compressor and a lot of that stuff. So this is kind of like an example mock-up. But I have my Bosch pancake compressor there and my smallest circular saw here. We're going to try a full depth of cut rip in this piece of pine blocking here. I think it's pine. So we'll see how that goes. Let me turn the compressor on and we'll get going. Okay, maybe it doesn't like that. Let me move the camera to the screen so you can see, and I guess I'll see how many watts that's taking. All right, that is really slowing down the compressor and the saw. I imagine the voltage is dipping quite a bit. Let me see what that is. Okay, let's try that again. I have the voltmeter hooked up. Okay, I see a minimum of 70 volts there. So that is not great. I would expect it to be kicking out instead of dipping down that far. All right, let's try just the circular saw then. There you can see that 83 volts is the minimum with just the saw running. Okay, I ripped that through on the other side here, and we can see what it looks like. Okay, there's 2 pieces there. That's some pretty nice straight grained, if I had to say, Douglas fir. I'm not a wood expert though. It seems like Douglas fir though. Interesting. All right. Now I realize my little circular saw is not maybe a good test, but a chop saw and a compressor very commonly used at the same time on a job site. So let's see how that does. And again, let's try it with a chop saw. And as is common with most solar generators sold nowadays, they're pure sine wave. Let's see how that sine wave holds up while running a compressor and a chop saw. It did not like that ash. I had grabbed some ash wood and really went at it, and it did not really maintain that great of a sine form, but it may have just been this meter. It doesn't have a very fast pulling rate. Is that even the right term? I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. So there we have it. If you have a, we'll say a one-man job site, this could handle it, as long as you're not doing really crazy, stupid stuff. I imagine it could run any two major tools that plug in with a normal 120 volt receptacle. And as a bonus, you can make coffee in the morning with it. Still useful. Wish it was bigger. Still useful though. All right, these are going to be some closing remarks in an effort to be complete. There's no app. The only control is the buttons that are on the device. So there's no way to update the firmware. There's no remote control. On the bright side, it just works. So you don't need to mess with an app for anything. The packaging it came in, I'm very pleased that EENOUR did not spend any money making it fancy. It was perfectly sufficient, but not really something worth showing. The AC output, and you can remove these doors pretty easily just by bending them a little bit. The AC output, it just works. I did not try overloading it past like 2000 watts. You could see in my testing that the voltage was dipping quite a bit, but that may have just been the loads that I was doing. If there is additional interest in me testing that, it may come in a second video. I would definitely recommend this as a product if you're looking for a solar generator or power station. You can use the names interchangeably. This is great for big, short jobs or small, long jobs, but not big, long jobs because it has a finite battery capacity. So in that case, a generator may be a better option. But a generator is loud. This is really quiet, like so quiet. The fans are not unpleasant at all. I don't mind the fans running at all. It's quite nice actually. It does have UPS functionality, so you can have power coming in here and up to 1100 watts coming out here. It doesn't have a way of combining the input pass-through power with the inverter that's inside. So you can't get 1100 watts plus 2000 watts. It doesn't work like that. So it'll only do 1100 watts in UPS mode, and that's because it's passing the AC through directly. If you're in a UPS power outage scenario and the battery dies completely and shuts off, and then your grid power comes back on, it does not automatically turn on. It's kind of heavy. Okay, that I made it look really bad, but for one guy, just like this, you know, it's really not that big of a deal. You know, I wouldn't be too chuffed to carry it 100 yards. Wouldn't be too bad. But typically I would see anybody using this to be using it with a vehicle of some sort. And the weight here, it's in line with other competitors in his class, maybe one of the better ones actually, in terms of pounds per kilowatt hour, but it's not expandable. So you have whatever it's in here, that's all you get. Some of the other competitors, you're gonna have expandable batteries, and that's not something that I really see this being used for, at least in every use case that I can think of myself using it for. As for how much of a deal this is, you can't just look at the values on an Amazon search results. You have to actually go into the listings of the devices and click on the coupons, or at least view the coupons, to calculate in your head, or at least for the cart, how much the actual price is going to be, because all of these seem to have coupons, including this one, of course. But this is cheaper than a Jackery Explorer 2000 Pro with coupons, cheaper than a Delta Max with coupons, not as cheap as a Delta 2, but the Delta 2 has half the battery capacity. And the Delta 2 has an inverter that's not quite as powerful as this. So it's kind of a competitor, but not really, and I figure for completeness, again, I should mention that. The cells that are in this that partially add up to the weight are lithium iron phosphate cells. So they're gonna be your safest cell, your longest life cycle cell. You're gonna get thousands of cycles out of this, so it's gonna last you many years, probably more than a decade of solid, heavy use. The only disadvantage to the lithium iron phosphate cells is they're a little bit less energy dense than other cell technology, so it's gonna weigh a little bit more than if it were made from a different cell chemistry. You can charge AC and solar at the same time. So that's 1,100 watts plus 500 watts, so 1,600 watts, leading to, now I have not tested this, but a 0 to 100 full charge time of, I'm gonna say less than an hour and a half. I don't have the documentation in front of me right now, but it's pretty darn fast. But I don't really see that being a common use, but the technology is there if you, for whatever reason, are set up to do that. Any values or results that I got numbers-wise are for reference only. I don't have any calibrated equipment, just to be clear. Another thing I discovered, it's kind of a nice feature, if it gets down to 10%, it beeps 3 times. So it lets you know, hey, your battery's running out, don't be stupid. I'll see if I can finagle a promotional discount code for you guys out of EENOUR, and if I can, it's gonna be in the description below this video and in the first pinned comment. Additionally, anything that I have forgotten or is wrong, I'm gonna correct in that description and the first comment as well, just so you guys don't miss it, because I hate being wrong. I like to be factually correct. The best kind of correct. All right, I think I have covered everything on this. About the shirt, it's not for sale, although I don't think that anybody here would be interested in buying it unless you're another YouTuber. But my mom made it. Thanks, Mom. This location here is my new property. The house is down there, probably right past the edge of the truck here. And every night, there's deer up in this field. Every night, without fail. It's quite impressive. All right, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video doing any sort of reviews. Look out for the next one that I have is going to be Ortor Laser Master 3, and that should be coming out in the next few days. So I'll see you guys around, and have an excellent rest of your life. Bye.